Good afternoon, everybody. Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Jorge Suquet. I am going to be your host for the next 2 days, and I want to warmly welcome you to Tenerife. Am I speaking too loud? This is a little too loud, right? This one. No, okay. Me podéis bajar un poquito porque estoy dejando aquí sordo al personal. Sí, no? Well, thank you for letting me know. Sorry about that. So welcome to Tenerife. Tenerife is the capital of the Canary Islands, and it's one of the most incredible and important places for astronomical observation. Welcome to the Institute of Astrophysics. And I wanted to start by sharing my view on what we're doing here today, which is not only being surrounded by great minds, but also I think this is a celebration. The fact that we're here today, when I was told I was going to come to Tenerife to host this event, and then all the fires started, I couldn't help but staying close to the television, really worried about what was going to happen to this place. And the fact that whoever in this room has been able to be today at the Teide Observatory can agree with me that, the effort that was made there to keep it as it is and not having it burnt, well, it's a celebration not only for the Canary Islands or Spain, but for the world. So thank you for everyone. Thank you to everyone that was involved in that. And let's start with this anyway. Welcome again. Since the astronomical expeditions of the 19th century to the upcoming installation of the incredible European Solar Telescope, the great advantages of this location have attracted the installation of research infrastructures. And those are the topic of this high-level conference organized in the framework of the Spanish presidency of the Council of the European Union by the Spanish Ministry of Science and Innovation. Research infrastructures are key elements for the advancement of science and human knowledge. They help us in many areas, as you all know, either observing the Earth, observing the skies, testing new ideas in the labs, or serving as platforms for developing new treatments against different diseases. Research infrastructures are quite complex, too. They require cutting-edge technologies, very specialized human resources, and major investments. Moreover, to operate in an effective manner, research infrastructures need to interconnect in a global scale and establish international cooperation among its communities. Today and tomorrow, we are going to be discussing about how we can better sustain research infrastructures and how we can build a global landscape of infrastructures with strong international cooperation bonds. I wanted to first also welcome everybody that's following us via streaming. Didn't want to forget about you. And to start with all of this, I wanted to also welcome the different distinguished authorities that are going to be opening these 2 days talks. Let me give the way to Mr. Rafael Rebolo, Director of the Institute of Astrophysics of the Canary Islands. Welcome, bienvenido.
Good afternoon. It's an honor and a pleasure to welcome you to our institute. First, the authorities, the Director Generals from my ministry, from the European Union, and also from other partner countries. And welcome to all of you. We serve research infrastructures. Our institute, the Institute of Astrophysics in the Canary Islands, is a consortium formed by our Ministry for Science and Innovation, the government, the regional government, the government of the Canary Islands, the local university, University of La Laguna, and the National Council for Research. About 500 members of the Institute work to understand, to explore the universe, and to support our two observatories that host many facilities from many European countries. And we are very proud to have this and sustain this collaboration for more than 35 years now. We host facilities from 20 countries, not only from Europe. We have also facilities for research owned by universities in the United States or in Japan, but mainly from Europe, mainly from about 15 countries from Europe, the European Union. So, and the UK now as well. UK actually was one of the first partners in our in our observatories. Our institute has a mission to do research of the universe, and we have several lines of research. But then we have also a mission to serve our national community for astrophysics, and also the international community. Because when the government of Spain decided to create these infrastructures in the Canary Islands in 1979, with some other countries, founder countries of the treaty that support our facilities, the vision was that the skies, the excellent skies that the Canary Islands offer as a window to the universe, should be also shared with those partners interested in expanding human knowledge. And since 1979, this has been the mission of the Institute, to do research and to help others also to do research with a collaborative spirit, searching for the best of human relations. As scientists, we want to find the truth of the skies and spread the values of research, of science, to the society. And in particular, we care a lot about teaching, training, and also outreach. So our institute modestly has contributed to the expansion of European astronomy, and I think also to the world astronomy, hosting the largest telescope in the world for optical and infrared astronomy, which is a Spanish telescope in the other island, in La Palma, the Gran Telescopio Canarias, and also supporting the development of two S3 facilities, the Cherenkov Telescope Array, now under construction in La Palma, and the future European Solar Telescope. So I finish here with my thanks to all of you for having the opportunity to share with you our facilities, and also these days where we are going to speak about sustainability of research infrastructures, which we all know that are fundamental for the development of science. So thank you very much. Thank you to the authorities and my authorities, in particular Gonzalo, for deciding to come here to celebrate this meeting. And I hope you have a good stay in Tenerife and enjoy also a spectacular land here and spectacular people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Revolo. Okay, now you are going to have to excuse me if I say any names in the wrong way, because there are a lot of names that are a little complicated. This is one of them, so please excuse me. I wanted to welcome Mrs. Radka Wildova, and if I'm wrong, please. Oh, that was perfect, thank you. Okay, so welcome. She's the Director General of Higher Education, Science and Research, Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports from the Czech Republic.
Okay, dear director, dear very important people on the field, not only research infrastructures, but as from the field of research as well. Dear Director General, ministers, and the other colleagues. I'm very thankful to be here, and I'm very surprised how many people are here, how a big event it is, and I'm very glad to be invited to meet you and to listen the talks about the topic which we find out as very important one. You know that last 4 presidency took this topic of research infrastructures as a key points for discussion. It was in France, it was in Czech Republic, it was in Sweden, and it is now in Spain. So this is what underlines the importance of research infrastructures as the whole. But this is nothing only about the infrastructures, but this is also about the research excellency, and most of these talks, and must be as a key point, is sustainability, because we know, as it has been said already, how important research infrastructures are, how important is to prepare all the things around, but not only the money, but especially cooperation. And if you remember the Czech presidency in Prague, there was the conference and there was the declaration which was signed in Brno. We called it the Brno Declaration on Research Infrastructures, where was written out how to organize, how to manage, but also how important is to develop the cooperation and how to focus on understanding around and also sustainability in the research infrastructure society. I am very glad that also here at Tenerife we are keeping this topic again in a very, very, very serious way, and I am very interested about the results of our discussion, how the progress has been done during these talks. But also, as Spain, as a president's country, I think is very important now to say at this moment, you are doing perfect work. I am at fourth event under the umbrella of Spain presidency. So this is what I would like to say on the address of Spain. It's a great work. Thank you very much. In a week, I traveled to Malaga for the other meeting, and I must say that there is a big compliment for your organization, but also for the field of the topics, which is very important. So thank you for that. And what was saying here by the director, enjoy not only the conference, not only the meeting your colleagues and meeting the new people here, but also enjoy this marvelous country. I know Tenerife for such a long time. I have been here 30, 40 times. So I know very well this country, and I must say, yes, it is what to see, not only what to listen and what to discuss about the sustainability of research infrastructures, but also enjoy this marvelous part of the world. So thank you for welcoming me, and good luck, and enjoy your time here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and yes, enjoy Tenerife as much as you can. Disfrútenla. Let's welcome Mr. Martin Balbashevsky. He's the personal advisor to the Minister of European Affairs and International Relations, Willy Borses, Vice President of Wallonia.
Thank you very much. Dear General Directors, dear Director, Mrs. the Senior Advisor, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I stand before you today on behalf of Minister Willy Borses, Vice President of the Walloon government, and on behalf of the Belgian government, to discuss such an important topic, the development of research infrastructures in Europe. Please be first aware, of course, that Minister Willy Borses apologizes for not being here today due to conflicting schedule. Evolving in a rapidly changing world where the twin transition, geopolitical pressures, and industrial revitalization are topics at the top of the EU agenda, Belgium considers research infrastructures as a key instrument for fostering not only innovation, and excellent research ecosystems, but also stimulating key EU value chains. Working towards an integrated, connected, and open framework in the fields of research and innovation, we strongly believe that cross-disciplinarity, open science, and interregional cooperation constitute major steps for tackling key EU industrial and societal challenges, but also fertilizing common responses and defending our innovative projects. In that regard, I really want to say that Belgium endorses the initiative launched by the Spanish presidency regarding the Declaration of Tenerife. With all its components and recommendations, we want to stress the significance of this declaration, as it offers comprehensive solutions for building more sustainable, efficient, and resilient research infrastructures. In this context, I can already and also invite you to mark the first week of June 2024 in your agenda, when the Belgian presidency will organize a conference on research infrastructures in Brussels. Naturally, this program is of course under construction, but it will build further on the excellent work done here during the Spanish presidency, and will try of course to take stock on of the ERA's policy action on research infrastructures. I'm convinced that the important topics related to research infrastructures that will be discussed here in Tenerife will provide us with a fertile ground for preparing our conference. For us, the issues of funding, governance, and skills are of utmost importance. With the number of research infrastructures increasing, coherent, complementary, and efficient funding is crucial for their sustainability. The topic of greening research infrastructures is also more important than ever. In that sense, the example of the Einstein telescope, one of the biggest research infrastructures to be built, and that has been, of course, as you know, on the S3 roadmap since 2021, highlights the technical challenges that European research and innovation actors will face. Indeed, most of the technologies necessary to build this telescope still have to be developed. We must take the opportunity to demonstrate our capacities to develop green and competitive technologies. Needless to say that the global and international context in which research infrastructures evolve must not be forgotten. The question of the global dimension of research infrastructures was already considered by the Swedish presidency, and the excellent work that was done merits to be pursued. Moreover, as we know, the international context is constantly evolving, and new concepts keep emerging. In that regard, the topic of science diplomacy, but also integrity and security in the global research ecosystem is essential. Belgium welcomes the initiatives of the European Commission on the matter and looks forward to learning more from Martin Penny about the guidelines for international cooperation on research infrastructures. That has been, of course, prepared by the Commission. In addition, I want to seize today this opportunity to introduce the upcoming Belgian presidency of the Council of the European Union, with a particular focus on the research configuration. As you know, in just a few short months, Belgium will assume the role of leading our union, guiding us through the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. Throughout its history, Belgium has been an active participant in the European project from its inception, working hand in hand with our partners to promote breakthrough research and innovation, paving the way towards a more prosperous, sustainable, and competitive Europe. Our incoming presidency will be a testament to our unwavering commitment to these ideals. Even though the final design of our objectives is still an ongoing process, our upcoming presidency will stress the significance of research, knowledge, and innovation in strengthening and modernizing the European industry to achieve more open strategic autonomy in key enabling technologies. These technologies are crucial for the decarbonization and digitalization of the European industry, and of course substantially impact many aspects of the society. The incoming presidency will also support cross-sectoral mobility researchers and the development of research infrastructures and access to those. Against this background, Belgium will also address the issues and opportunities related to the valorization of research results, aiming to reduce the innovation gap, reflect over the valley of death, and to better connect ecosystems, leading towards the industrial recovery. Moreover, Belgium will also pay attention to reinforce the role of research and innovation in society, and will in that context follow up on the ex-post evaluation of Horizon 2020, and pave the way towards the preparation of the forthcoming framework program for research and innovation. Our next presidency will also be marked by an open and inclusive approach, of course, engaging with all member states, institutions, and stakeholders to ensure that the voices of our diverse unions are heard and considered. We firmly believe that by fostering dialogue and cooperation, we can find common ground and make meaningful progress on the pressing issues before us. For the second time, we have the honor of working closely with Spain and Hungary. This trio underscores the importance of cooperation and collaboration among EU member states, strengthening the Union's ability to address its diverse and evolving set of challenges. Together, we have established a common program that highlights our priorities. Through various events, legislative and non-legislative initiatives, we will work to increase the EU global competitiveness while reinforcing the nexus between research, development, innovation, and industrial ambitions, with the commitment to build a strong, innovative, and sustainable economy. Finally, we strive to deepen international partnerships, multilateral cooperation, and security, while also more firmly defending the EU interest based on the European values. Almost halfway through its presidency, Spain has already greatly demonstrated its commitment to the TRIO program. The priorities of the Spanish presidency clearly align with the program, reindustrializing the EU and ensuring its open strategic autonomy, advancing the ecological transition and environmental adaptation, promoting greater social and economic justice, and strengthening European unity. Belgium welcomes the ongoing efforts of the Spanish presidency to ensure that those priorities are reflected in its events and initiatives. In conclusion, let us remember that we are born together by a shared destiny and a common purpose. Together, we can build a stronger, more resilient, and more united Europe for the benefit of all our citizens. Belgium is ready to take up this challenge, and we will look forward to working closely with our European partners in the spirit of solidarity and cooperation. I wish you a fruitful conference, rich discussions, and excellent debates, and I rely on you to give us valuable input for next conference, where we'll do our best to pursue the work initiated here in Tenerife. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gracias. Please welcome Mrs. Ana Arana Antelo, Senior Advisor for Research Careers, Director General for Research of Innovation at the European Commission.
Thank you very much, first of all, to the Spanish presidency for organizing this conference here, important one. And as has been said, this is very timely because it builds up on the previous discussion in Lund and the Lund Declaration and the Swedish presidency, and even more recently on the Czech presidency and the Brno Declaration. First of all, so I would like to present the apologies from Anna Panagopoulou, the director from the Commission, who could not finally, unfortunately, very unfortunately, come here. So she has asked me to represent her and speak on her behalf. So please accept her apologies for not being able to be here. So I was saying that this event is very timely in terms of what has been already been doing in previous presidencies, but also in terms of substance. Global dimension and sustainability are key issues, very important. And we in the Commission have also been addressing those in our recent work, notably in the recent ERIC report. And needless to underline that if we want to have excellent science, we need best equipment and services for our researchers. We need the best tools for exchanges, for collaboration, for being competitive beyond countries and regions. We also need science-based solutions to address increasingly complex challenges, most of them of global nature. So we need to, as it's been done, go beyond, looking at beyond the impacts on within national borders. I would also like to repeat, as I said, that the timeline for us is very important of this conference because it comes just when the third report on the implementation of the ERIC regulation has come out, has been adopted by the Commission. And this report, as I said, also touches upon some of these issues. ERIC, as you know, has been a very successful tool. Already 26 ERICs have been established. So the original intention of the ERIC of facilitating the joint establishments and sustained operations of research infrastructures by several countries has been achieved. In order to achieve sustainability of research infrastructures, there are many challenges to be tackled. For instance, financial sustainability and the operational sustainability challenge. To achieve financial sustainability, the funding model of a research infrastructure should not only ensure financial resources for today's functions, but must also provide a space for its development, future development, to keep ensuring state-of-the-art services as needed by the users. We need to also give particular consideration to distributed infrastructures and their specific issues for complexities in distributed infrastructures in terms of funding models between a central hub and distributed nodes. So it is key to develop synergies among all possible funding sources at EU level, but also at national and regional level. To raise awareness and facilitate synergies, the Commission recently issued the guidance on synergies between Horizon Europe and the European Regional Development Fund that, as you know, has a big envelope also for research and innovation. This guidance covers a number of mechanisms like transfers, cumulative funding, support for teaming, and sales of excellence. We hope that this guidance will be useful for research infrastructures, but we also acknowledge that more efforts are needed to address the specific needs of the different phases of the life cycle of the research infrastructure. So ESFRI is currently working on the funding aspects and will be helping coming out with the specific recommendations. This includes also the different funding models to access research infrastructures. We will hear about this more later today, and we will also hear about the concrete experience of some research infrastructures. In relation to operational sustainability, key aspects include benefiting from more operational synergies as well to secure adequate human resources. And it has been pointed out in the recent ERIC report. Also, efforts need to be made to make careers more attractive for research infrastructure staff at European and international contexts. This is, the difficulty comes very often from the diversity of the employment schemes and the conditions among researchers. This is particularly true also for distributed infrastructures. So I'm very happy that this topic will also be discussed later in this conference. So finally, sustainability is closely related to the coherent governance of the entire research infrastructures ecosystem. And governance as individual research infrastructures, agreements with partners or distributed nodes, development of common strategies by networks or clusters of infrastructures at national, regional, or European level, and the policies linked to those, and as well the international engagements. So the European research area has been, and still is, a driving force to make the landscape and all the elements of its governments more coherent and more effective. In this context, the Commission and the EU member states and associated countries are working together, notably through ESFRI. I would like now to turn to the other theme of this conference, the global dimension of research infrastructures. So given, as I said before, given the increasingly global nature of many of our challenges, green, digital, health, we need to join efforts even more and more at the international level. We are calling for a cooperation that is based on the principle of a balanced reciprocal openness and promoting a level playing field underpinned by fundamental values and a common framework conditions, as was reminded in the Brno Declaration last year. So we have many, many examples of excellent cooperation with partners from other regions of the world, astronomical observations in Africa, Europe, and Asia, mentioned in JIVE here, or the EU contribution to the Global Ocean Initiative, ARGO, of course, CO2 observation, supporting the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, ICOS, Eric. So the Memorandum of Understanding also signed by two ERICs in the field of health with institutions from Brazil and Uruguay, Instruct ERIC and the Eurobioimaging ERIC, and contribution to the World Meteorological Organization on Global Atmosphere Watch Program, like ICOS, ERIC, and ACTRIS. So be it as a contribution to global initiatives and addressing global challenges, or be it for scientific changes, synergies, and optimizing use of research infrastructures or collection of data, international cooperation requires efforts to synchronize priorities and resources. And this is a real challenge, having in mind the different programming cycles and processes in every different country and region. So I would expect you will have a very good discussion and fruitful discussion on this later tomorrow. So I want to finish by thanking you all for your presence here, for your attention, and repeating my thanks to the Spanish President and our hosts also for organizing this conference here today, this week.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, among our authorities, we have the Director General for Research Planning of the Ministry of Science and Innovation from Spain, Mr. Gonzalo Arévalo. Bienvenido.
Well, dear Rafael, dear Radka, dear Martin, dear Anna, dear estimated guest, it is an absolutely pleasure to welcome you all to the opening of this session of the Presidency Conference on Research Infrastructures, theme, as it was said, Global Dimension and Sustainability of Research Infrastructures. And that follows the tradition of the EU Research Infrastructure conferences during the last presidency semesters. A warm and heartfelt welcome to Tenerife Island, the Canary Islands, and Spain. We take immense pride in being a part of the European Union, and we are honored to assume the presidency of the EU Council during this semester. Here in the Canary Islands, a part of the astronomic outstanding facilities that we had the chance to visit this morning, we count also with other outstanding facilities in oceanic, meteorological, or biomedical science, among others. Within our Ministry for Science and Innovation, we have meticulously prepared an intensive and ambitious program for this presidency. Over the past week, we delved into research excellence, first with the EOSC Symposium, and now with the commencement, just this morning, of the Open Science Fair Conference in Madrid, and also embarking in this journey focusing on research infrastructures during our presidency conference, accompanied by a series of satellite events on research infrastructures, and other project meetings that will culminate on Friday, where we also take the chance and we celebrate here our annual meeting of the Spanish research infrastructures. You may have noticed that we have chosen different and enchanting locations across Spain. This decision serves to a dual purpose. On one hand, showing our nation's capabilities and illustrating how research and innovation policies help to vertebrate among regions, fostering capabilities and complementarities. This is particularly evident when we consider research infrastructures and their global impact, whether at the national with the Spanish roadmap on research infrastructure, the European one with the S3 roadmap, or at global level. Through collaborations and investments, we create unique hubs where all researchers can conduct groundbreaking science, and at the same time, we deliver technology. To this end, it is crucial that research infrastructures are interconnected, not only within the national networks, but also with their international counterparts. Beyond their primary functions, research infrastructures play a pivotal role in science diplomacy, as it was said by my Belgian colleague. Not just because they're interconnections, but also due to the trust developed around shared values and principles. Incidentally, I have to refer that there will be a presidency conference, just that it will be the last presidency conference that we will have in Madrid at the end of December, well, the end, 18th and 19th of December, under our presidency program. Another pivotal aspect of the discussions that we are going to have in these days will be the sustainability of research infrastructures. And as it was said, this is of utmost importance to us at all the ministry headquarters where we oversee their continued operation. Key factors in ensuring sustainability include securing long-term funding mechanisms and sources in alignment with their business plans, nurturing the human capital with talent and enthusiasm, promoting open science with research infrastructures as it enables, and embracing digital and environmental transitions. As we embark on these discussions with an outstanding set of speakers on our 4 discussing sessions, I am certain that we will find some solutions to the challenge that we have to gather, while also uncovering new questions that challenges on the horizon. This is how progress is made. On this regards, we were able to produce the Tenerife Declaration, that tomorrow at the end of the conference it will be displayed, and for which we expect the endorsement of many member states. As also was referred by previous speakers, I encourage all of you to make the most of these intensive 2 days, not only on attending the very interesting lectures that we will have, but also on actively engaging in the discussions that will undoubtedly broaden our horizons. Additionally, if you have the opportunity, and I know that with the program that we have prepared, you don't have too much time for free, okay, but in any case, I recommend that you take some time to explore the beauty of this island. It is not only known for its splendid weather and beaches, but also for its remarkable locations, culinary delights, and the warmth of its people. Last, but certainly not the least, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to the Institute of Astrophysics of the Canary Islands, the IAC, for hosting this conference and for granting us the privilege of visiting the observatorio at the Teide Mountain. I also want to express my appreciation to the dedicated team of the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology for the hard work in making this event possible. And lastly, my acknowledge also to my team at the Ministry of Science and Innovation for the diligent efforts in shaping the contents of our discussions. In conclusion, it is my great honor and pleasure to officially declare this conference open. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for this great introduction, and let's start. Definitely, the current and future scientific challenges will require smart investments in research infrastructures. Those investments will need to consider the green transition as well as the global dimension of research infrastructures. What a word, infrastructures. It's complicated, no? Infraestructuras. Anyway, for this reason, we have organized this two-day talks in two different segments or axes. Axis 1 is referred to the sustainability challenges of research infrastructures, including resilience, and Axis 2 will be about global dimension of research infrastructures. So let's already start with axis number 1. And we'll start with a general view on sustainability challenges of research infrastructures. For this, please give a warm welcome to Carlo Rizzuto, Chair of the General Assembly of the Central European Research Infrastructure Consortium. Welcome, Carlo.
Well, I will not, you will see slides, but I will not follow the slides verbatim, because I will try to give a number of messages which are of general nature, and then there will be a round table that will discuss more in detail possible solutions. Now, first of all, let's try to define what is the sustainability of a research infrastructure, and how the sustainability of research infrastructure is embedded in a wider context. Basically, we have if we define it, there is the ability to dynamically maintain and support one research infrastructure over a time perspective of at least 10, but often 50 years. If we look at the observatory, the site of the observatory probably has been started having in mind 1 or 2 facilities. Now there are 20 or more. It's unpredictable what will be the evolution of a research infrastructure once you start. The perspective is that you have to be able to feed and respond continuously to the evolution of research, to the evolution of technology, to the evolution of people, and to the evolution of the environment in general. And this is what is required if you want to have long-term sustainability. You have to have also resilience in it, because sometimes the developments are completely unpredictable, and therefore you have really to manage in emergency sometimes. Like, for example, is the case now of the increase of cost of energy, which has been almost killing a number of research, killing the capability of operating of a number of research infrastructures. Now, this depends then on conditions which are different from research infrastructure to research infrastructure and evolving with time. One of the things that is evolving with time is science, and luckily science is unpredictable. So you cannot plan very long for science. Again, if I take the example here of astronomy, I am old enough to remember that astronomy was given like dead, almost dead, 30, 40 years ago. So what? No, they have seen already everything. And then all of a sudden has exploded. The number of different messengers, different types of radiation, even the gravitational waves in the last moment, in the last few years. So this is one. The second is the number of time and type of research infrastructures. I have been one of the inventors of ESFRI, and thanks to ESFRI, there is a European approach to research infrastructure, but there is also a European increase of research infrastructures, and many of these research infrastructures are new, completely new on a green field, but many, and many more actually, are coming by putting together and integrating research infrastructures that were already operating in many cases in the universities. And therefore, these are the integration of smaller research infrastructures which are indispensable to be distributed. For example, environment cannot be measured only in one place. Medical aspects have to be measured all over Europe. Socioeconomic cases or socioeconomic aspects have to be measured everywhere. So distributed infrastructures are now one of the major aspects, but are still too new and evolving very fast, and we don't know as yet what will be the evolution of them. Available resources. I'm not speaking about funding. I am speaking about resources in general. Very often there is the risk that there is money and there are not enough ideas and there are not enough trained people to use the money in the right way. So money is one thing, yes, but is in the end, in my view, people, ideas, methods, organization, training, are things that are rare, and are very rare in general in the modern world, and are even more rare for research infrastructures. The vision is very difficult to develop. Now, the challenge, therefore, is not each research infrastructure, but is of the system of research infrastructures within a larger system, which is the European Research Area. The construction of the European Research Area as the infrastructures as a bone, as the sustaining bone, is increasing, and I think is the only part of the European Research Area that has also a legal form that has been invented. But already 50 or more years ago, with CERN, ESO, ESA, EMBL, we had already the first parts of this construction. Now, we have the availability of researchers, organization and budgeting, governance, interplay between the Europe, the state, regional, public, private. And then there is one point that normally is forgotten, is the sustainability of the users. It's very rare, and let me go to the next slide, that, no, it's not here anyway, it's very rare that when you plan for a research infrastructure and the sustainability of the research infrastructure, you plan also for the sustainability of the users. Very often, the user communities are not well connected. This is the case not of astronomy, but of the distributed sciences, are not well connected to the research infrastructures, and therefore they are not able to push and to lobby for the research infrastructures in the right way. One of the points is that we have internal problems, but also external problems. In the external problems, we have also the returns and visibility, the explanation and the communication of the science results, which have to be typically addressed. The political frame, the global frame, the European frame, and the national frame, and the interest of general stakeholders and public that has to come in if we want to be sustainable. Now, if we go here it was, to some of the more specific issues. We have, I take the second one, in the distributed research infrastructures, you have the focus on what is, well, when we have invented these type of infrastructures, we wanted to bring them nearer to the governments. The gap between governments and research is always fairly large, and the communication is difficult. Now, in bringing distributed infrastructures into international organizations which are participated by governments, there is a positive aspect, which is getting the governments nearer to how research is made. They have to sit in the councils and see how it is made. And this helps a lot in communicating how research is impacting in the various aspects, for example, innovation, for example, industry. Now, I will go to the next slide and say something more about the governments. Wait a moment. This has gone on its own. The impact assessment is only coming now within research infrastructures, thanks to ESFRI, that has been evolving it strongly. This is important because if we don't know what is the impact, we are not able to communicate the effect of research infrastructures. And then again, we have to build the system of impact assessment. And risk management typically is not very much in the scientist's mind. Actually, scientists accept risk and don't try to avoid risk, but in management you have to avoid risk. Now, I go to the last slide, and this is the final message, and I take the opportunity that there are still the authorities here, is the fact that there is one issue, is governance, sustainability of the governance. Now, in most state organizations, in most ministries, there is the tendency to go to leaner and leaner, less people, organizations. The same is happening at the European level within the Commission. In the Commission, you have, for example, not only leaner organization, but changing organization. In the last 5 years, we had 3 times the change of most of the people that were looking after research infrastructures. Where is the continuity? The continuity is not there. And if we take now the fact that there are in the new research infrastructures 26 ERICs, these 26 ERICs have 2 meetings per year in which the government representatives have to sit. This means that on the average, every country in Europe is participating to 14 ERICs. They have to attend 28 meetings. In many countries, there are not enough people in the ministries to be able to attend the meetings because they happen all either in November or in June, because this is when you have the accounts. So when we speak about sustainability, we have to speak about the overall sustainability of the system that contains research infrastructures. And this system is the European Research Area, which needs, there are developments in this moment in the governance, but needs governance and needs the right people, training, education, both at the governmental level until down to the level which is the technical level or administrative level. I hope that with this I have given the right message to the higher level and also to the level of the people who are involved in the research infrastructures. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, what an important message, actually. So after this first part of Access 1, we're going to take a short break for coffee. Coffee will be served out there, outside of the building. Also, I invite you to enjoy wonderful images that we are going to be showing in the screens taken actually by the telescope. You can just stay here and relax with the images, and we'll see you in 15 minutes? 15 minutes. Hello, good afternoon, buenas tardes, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this coffee break, this time for networking, and you got good energy for the session to come. I definitely would watch these videos for like over and over and over again. Congratulations to the Ministry of Science and Innovation. So next, to continue with our talks and discussions about the sustainability challenges of research infrastructures, we are going to discuss about the funding sources, the governance, and the skills on a round table formed by Roundtable's chair, Gianna Collar. She's the chair of the European Strategy Forum of Research Infrastructures and the executive director of CERIC, Eric. Welcome. And panelists. Our panelists today will be Elena Hoffert, French delegate to the European Strategy Forum of Research Infrastructures and chair of ESFRI Working Group on Long-Term Sustainability. That was long also. Welcome, bienvenida. Andrew Harrison, Director of Science Extreme Light Infrastructure, ERIC. Hello, Andrew. Julia Fernandez Rodriguez, Head of the Center for Cellular Imaging at the University of Gothenburg. Welcome as well. Niklas Blomberg, Director of Elixir. Hola, bienvenido. And last but not least, we have Carlo Rizzuto again, Chair of the General Assembly Central European Research Infrastructures Consortium, CERIC, Eric. Welcome all, and enjoy the talk. Thank you.
Yes, welcome back after the coffee breaks. I hope you had a very, lively break. Let's start with this session. And first of all, I would like to thank the presidency, the Spanish presidency, for highlighting the topic of research infrastructures, which is, well, as you know, very dear to my heart. And also for picking up this excellent location, which also gives us an opportunity to see research, to visit research infrastructure. Now, I'll just use the word that Carlo used before, meaning that by saying that I will pass now a few messages of general nature, because so much has already been said in the introductory talk during the first session, not to mention then also Carlo's talk. So let me just start by simply saying a few thoughts of my own, adding to the playad of the thoughts spoken earlier. Now, first of all, yes, it's about financing. Sustainability is about financing. But it's not so much about funding, that it's also about how the funding is delivered. Which are the funding instruments? For example, it's important to use the right one, considering that long-term operations, well, it's difficult to fund them with, through short-term projects. So the color of money is also important. Now, in addition, sustainability has to do with how research infrastructures deliver. They will be sustainable if everyone is awed with what they deliver. Now, of course, they need to deliver on science. They are established to support researchers to deliver the new knowledge, breakthrough results, but also address societal challenges, depending on the type of research infrastructure. But scientific mission is one. In order to develop high-quality services for the scientific communities that research infrastructure support, there needs to be a proper high-quality governance and strategy put in place in every research infrastructure. Now, what we often think and say that researchers need to be innovative, technology development needs to be innovative, but also governance in research infrastructures and everywhere else needs to use innovative approaches. In addition, high-quality services need to be supported by high-quality staff. So for all research infrastructures, sustainability as we heard before, is linked to the capability of attracting, training, retraining, and retaining skilled resources. It will not be possible to do without this. And let me end by saying that it's not only in research infrastructures delivering excellent services. It's also important that they're able to communicate to their funders and decision makers that they do that. So they need to be, first of all, versed in communication, but also impact assessment in this case becomes extremely important. Mixing the data to convince, to demonstrate to their funders what they deliver, but also the case studies to complement the data. Now, it's important in this case to mention that research infrastructures, Carlos said that it's good in ERICS because ministries sit in the governing boards and it gives them better understanding of science. Well, it's also important that research infrastructures learn from the policymakers on what are their expectations because they may change with time, and they do. For example, not 5 years ago or 7 years ago, it was extremely important for data research infrastructures how they deal with data. Now it's relevant to deliver for all research infrastructures the fair data for the user communities. Thank you. Is this better? I hope you heard me. So just to conclude, these challenges and more will be discussed with our excellent panel here. And let us start by, with Elena. With her, the session's organized in a way that each of the panelists will have a short presentation of about 5 minutes. Following this, we will have a discussion which I will moderate. And then we will have the Mentimeter questions. There will be a slide appearing with a QR code, which you will scan, and you will be able to start typing your questions. So prepare the questions. Then also, once the questions, you will be able to see all the questions to the panelists, like the ones that you like in particular, because they will be then, of course, surfacing towards the top and will be more likely to be selected to be addressed by the panelists. So you have microphones. Elena.
Thank you. Hello, everybody, and thank you very much the organizers of this conference for this opportunity to present to you our work, which we started in ESFRI, the European Strategy Forum on Research Infrastructures. We started last year. We set up a group which tries to analyze the subject of funding of research infrastructures. And actually, why? Because it's a result of different initiatives which were already undertaken by ESFRI. For example, in 2017, we published already a script about sustainability on research infrastructures, and then this question was taken up by the European Commission with staff working document, and then there was a number of expert working groups working on this question as well, with different conclusions. I forgot to move the slides, I'm sorry. So yes, here you have the timeline. And then all these thoughts were also certainly supported politically by the Competitiveness Council, which also proposed a number of conclusions during different presidencies, and actually for us, the one which really pushed our work in ESFRI was the conclusions of Competitiveness Council from the 2nd of December 2022, where it invited member states via ESFRI Forum to think about the funding models of research infrastructures, to analyze the funding models, to see which are the bottlenecks, which are the questions, where are some problems, and which are the solutions to overcome these problems. And it invited us to make some recommendations. So we started this work Also, if you remember, in 2021, ESFRI published its roadmap with 63 research infrastructures, which represent 24 billion euros of cumulative investments. So it means that we are doing a lot of efforts all together. But somehow we need to homogenize this system, because we are reaching now a very important level of investments, and we need this sustainability of research infrastructures in order to provide the continuity of research infrastructures, in order to make them able to tackle upcoming challenges, to be able to stay at the necessary level, state-of-the-art level, also to be competitive at the international level. So all this were the reasons for us to start this work. Now, you see on the slides, the work will not finish probably in 2023, because it's something which is important, and which is important also on a long-term period. But just to say, this is the beginning of a very difficult job, which has never been done by ESFRI before, and actually which has never been done before on the European level. So we have some challenges, we have some difficulties. You can imagine that all of us, we are very different. We personally, but also our countries, our governments, our research infrastructures with different systems. We need some methodology which should be adopted by everyone in order to be able to compare the things. We need some common language to understand each other. We also have to speak with a lot of interlocutors, because we started our work with sending questionnaires to governments, also questionnaires to the research infrastructures. And as soon as we started analyzing this feedback, we understood that we still need more work. We organized several workshops with research infrastructures, also individual interviews. And so it is not always easy. And it is not easy also for our group, because we have to deliver some results in a quite short period of time. Till the end of this year, we are supposed to give some recommendations. So just to tell you that we are working on it, we are analyzing the work, but the recommendations, which you will see on the next slide, they haven't been presented yet to ESFRI. We have our ESFRI meeting on Friday, so on Friday the colleagues will discuss the things which were presented more or less to you today, even if it's just a draft of recommendations, okay? So at least you will see the directions where we go. So we see some benefits somehow, even of the work which is already done now, because it gives some consciousness to governments, it gives consciousness also to research infrastructures about the amounts, about the ways the research infrastructures are funded, and it helps us to better position ourselves in the whole landscape, European landscape, international landscape, also to be able to show where we can go, and to see what are the next challenges, and to think about the future developments. And finally, on the next slide, I will present to you some first conclusions which we can take out of all these different materials which we collected from research infrastructures and governments. Well, this is just the draft of recommendations. I am sure that in our report we will go deeper in the questions. We will develop more ideas. But as you can see, we were able to make recommendations in 3 categories. So the first category is recommendations to research infrastructures. And actually, why? Because paradoxically, research infrastructures always say they need sustainable funding, they need a long-term vision, but when they start replying on the questionnaire, they couldn't understand the complete picture of funding sources, funding streams which come to the research infrastructures, and particularly in the distributed research infrastructures. It's really very, very complex in distributed research infrastructures, because in the national nodes, we don't have exact vision of how it's functioning. So as soon as we don't have this vision, it's difficult to understand which is the future insight, because how can you plan if you don't understand how it's working already now. So this is one of the things which we wanted. We would like to put in our report. We will certainly develop this point, but it's the general orientation. As soon as they have the clear vision of funding sources, the research infrastructures also need to have clear vision of their costs. And this is also something which should be better studied at the level of research infrastructures, because I'm not even speaking now about access costs. Access costs, we could say it's a subcategory of general costs. So they should clarify the system, and particularly for distributed research infrastructures, because for single-sited research infrastructures, in a way it's easier, even if maybe the size is bigger normally, but the system is centralized. That's why it's probably easier for them. For the distributed research infrastructures, the question is not only funding sources of different governments, but also of member states, but also the question of different accounting systems, of different ways how the administrative entities speak with each other. So it's really amazing how different we are, and research infrastructures show to us maybe a real great European creation where we put the sources together, we manage to speak with each other, but we still need some points where we should clarify better how we can work together. At the level of member states, we think that it's also necessary to develop the appropriate funding monitoring, probably, or I don't know, some system which would help the member states also to understand all the costs of research infrastructures, and also which would help to reassure the multi-annual planning via different funding models. Because at the level of member states, it's also very interesting. We don't always have the clear idea of everything. We have centralized funding, main state budget funding. We have national institution funding in most of the cases. And then we have a multitude of different types of funding, regional, targeted, strategic funds, resilience funds, all these new funding schemes which exist after COVID, for example, and so on. And at the governmental level, it's not always easy to have a clear idea about how much money goes from what types of sources for research infrastructures. And also, in most of the countries, we have already the national roadmaps on research infrastructures. So in most of the countries, these roadmaps serve as strategic documents for important investment decisions, but it doesn't work for all of the countries. So we think that it can help to have some strategic documents like roadmaps, or maybe something else, for the governments, in order to harmonize the funding approaches, in order to systematize the funding approaches, and it would also help the governments to take the informed strategic decisions thanks to these documents. And then coming to the level of funders, funders means regional funding, national funding, we also have European funding. So all these actors of funding, we would advise to them to have a long-term engagement on research infrastructures funding, and not only at the moment when we create research infrastructure and when we think about the first investments, and not also only for the operational costs, which is very important, but also think about future developments, technological developments of research infrastructures, about upgrades, about the things which move forward. As we heard already in the previous talk, the science goes forward, life goes forward. We have, every time we have new challenges which we are facing, and we need to adapt. And that's why when we are speaking about the established research infrastructures, we cannot just go on with the things which were written 10 years ago for them, or maybe 15 years ago. We also have to take some measures to permit them to make the necessary changes, technological changes or upgrades or something else, to adapt and to be able to respond to the new challenges that we are facing. And then, as soon as we say that, we say also that we need some system to make all these funding sources coherent, and we need synergy between all these funding sources, because, again, we have a multitude of funding sources at the national levels, but we have also a big multitude of funding sources at the European level. And we know that there is a resilience fund, we know that there is structural funds. There is a new fund which appeared not long ago, just transition fund. We have also Horizon Europe. We have also, in Horizon Europe, we have research infrastructures programs, but we also have Pillar 2, Pillar 3, which can be also used for research infrastructures funding, but it's so complex, and we don't have any vision. And it's great to have this guidance from the European Commission, but I think we should all make a common effort to make this system more transparent. And the last point is, as it was also cited already before, a common problem is human resources. We need to find new people. We need to maintain motivated people. We need qualified people during all the life cycle of research infrastructure. So we need to find some European solutions for that. And it's also up to funders to suggest the solutions how to tackle this problem. And it's not only a problem of researchers, because researchers are working and everybody is speaking a lot about them, but it's also a problem of engineers, of technical staff. We need all these people also who are able to adapt to the new challenges like digital transition or environmental transition and all these things. So this is something which is also very important for us all. Well, I think I don't have any time anymore, and as you understand, it was just a general overview. More details will be in the report, which will be published soon. And so you are invited to look at this report and to see what we can do together.
Thank you very much, Elena. We are hardly waiting to see the report highlighting all these topics, and particularly recommendations. So let me pass the floor to Andrew, because you mentioned also the synergy of various sources, and who better to address this than representative of Eli, Andrew.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah, thank you. I should say who better, actually the person who was originally invited, which was Alan Weeks, DG of Eli. I'm the science director, but I do have some experience in the challenges that arise. So I'm going to speak from the perspective now of a research infrastructure and the challenges that we find establishing sustainable funding models. And I'm glad to say actually a lot of what I will say resonates with some of the things you said, Elena, not surprisingly, particularly the need to establish a common understanding about what services the funding will provide for and how do you make that continue to be competitive. So I'm speaking from the particular perspective of the extreme light infrastructure. One or two words perhaps about that. This was set up as an initiative to provide very high performance lasers to a wide variety of users, some of whom have never used lasers before across Europe in a wide range of scientific domains. So it's the first time that high performance lasers have been provided as a user facility. And this initiative was funded through the structural funds of 3 countries, Czech Republic, Hungary, and Romania, to the tune completely of about 900 million euros. So a very, very substantial capital investment. In addition, we were very fortunate to gain support in the startup phase to establish technical capability to put in place the right sort of governance and access mechanisms to get us up to speed as a functional operational facility. So again, central European funds from Horizon 2020 enabled us to get up and running. And we've been running now as an operational facility for a year with many hundreds of users actually already coming to us, and I'll touch on that in a moment. And then most recently, 2 of those facilities, that based in the Czech Republic and that based in Hungary, have come together as an ERIC. And they, together with a number of member states, and initially the member states are Italy and Bulgaria, in future will contribute to the funding. And we have this interesting intermediate model where additional countries, before they have committed to being members, can join as observers. They have 3 years to decide whether they're going to stay in and fund us or leave. And at the moment, Germany and Bulgaria are in those intermediate observer positions. So the next challenge now is, having built these infrastructures, using funds which are almost entirely suitable for the construction, for the capital outlay, how do we go on then to make these sustainable when it comes to operations? But not just operations, the full range of things, and I think this is the crucial point, the full range of things that we need to support over the medium and long term. That's not just the operations, but it's also the ongoing investment to make sure that we continue to be competitive and relevant, and also making sure that everybody, the infrastructures and the funders, together understand the range of service, that the expectations are the same about the services that we'll provide, and that, does that include, for example, us being the curators, the people who look after the data? Does that include being responsible for upgrades, for example, in response to energy challenges and so forth? The key thing here is that the facilities and the funders both have a common agreement about what the funding is for, now and for the midterm. So a common understanding, not necessarily a commitment to, a common understanding of a multi-financial plan. And then the question is, who is actually going to go and fund us? Well, beyond the construction phase, where, of course, structural funds provided essentially all of the money, but are extremely limited in the way in which they can support ongoing funding, we have to think primarily about the host countries and the member states collectively being the sources of funding. Of course, additional European money is essential to catalyze other activity, and in addition, there may be some industrial income. But it's quite clear, at least historically, and one might hope that this changes in the future, that the very large majority of the funding costs will come from the member states. And it's also important to understand that small fluctuations in funding can have a very big impact on our ability to deliver operations. 80 to 90% typically of the cost, or the annual cost of running an infrastructure, is just the base standing cost. The actual additional cost of delivering services, of switching on the instruments at the level in which they provide services to user, to support user travel and so forth, is generally a small fraction of the total. So it's critical to get these calculations, critical to get the funding in, to actually deliver anything like 100% in funding. So at the moment, we have this interesting mixture of support from the host countries, which have also agreed, at least in the first 5 years, to provide a substantial amount of the operational costs. But their expectation is that over the course of time, they will taper down that funding, and we will bring in additional complementary funding from member states, so that the sum total should rise over the period of time, and that the host countries should reduce their contribution. And here's an interesting question to which I don't have a complete answer. Actually, in the front row, we have people who could perhaps provide direct input. What should that balance be between the funding from the host countries and the funding from the member states? Should it be in proportion to the expected percentage use of the facilities, or using the received wisdom? Should we expect that there's an additional benefit to hosting these things? So the expectation should be that even in the medium to long term, the host countries should support an additional percentage of the overall running cost of the facility. A question to be discussed, but clearly among the challenges we have is to demonstrate to the host countries that there's an additional benefit in being hosts. And I think historically that has been demonstrated. There's all sorts of, and I'll touch on that in a moment, not least the fact that the primary source of funding tends to flow into the local economy anyway. But also we have the challenge of demonstrating to potential future member states that we offer unique selling points. Why would Germany want to be a paid-up member if it can already get most of these facilities through German labs? It should only come and pay for these additional facilities if we offer them something that could not be accessed in Germany, or whatever country we're talking about. So the third strand to this is really the challenge of demonstrating the benefit of research infrastructures to those who fund them. And we're talking primarily here about the various countries who put money into supporting operations and ongoing development. What is the premium that the host countries enjoy? And of course, many people in this room know all about how to demonstrate socioeconomic impact. And I would say here, all those factors, the impact of the science that you deliver, the enhancement of your workforce through the additional funding that our research infrastructure can perform, these are all part of the panoply of benefits that you can present. But in the case of the host countries, where those host countries are based in Central Europe, there's an additional factor here, and this is to demonstrate that locating a research infrastructure lifts the level of science in those countries towards the impact of that science. Countries which have a developing scientific infrastructure lifts the impact of that science closer towards countries which have had much longer established research infrastructures. And also, I'd say a key thing is to demonstrate that we provide a more attractive pull for talented workers and a greater ability to keep them. And what I would say is it's only early days. We've been operating for a year, but we're starting to see some evidence coming through. What the graph shows is the nationality of scientists who applied to use ELI in the last call. Almost 300 scientists from across the world, primarily Europe, applied in the last call to use ELI. And of course, the usual suspects, the bigger research countries, are on the left-hand side of that graph. Germany, the UK, USA and France. But interestingly, Hungary and Czech Republic, in relation to the size of their research community, are already punching well above their weight when it comes to gaining access through international expert peer review processes. There's already indication that by locating these facilities in the country, you stimulate engagement of scientists in these areas, and they're more successful than the national average in winning access to these facilities. And then to the member countries, again, it's demonstrating USPs. And there's an interesting challenge here. So at the moment, we and many research facilities are open on the basis of peer-reviewed excellence. In principle, any country can apply and gain access to beam time, whether they're a member or not. So our choice to make this sustainable is either you at some point introduce a filter whereby only those countries that pay get beam time or a lot of beam time. This is the case in some research infrastructures. We would argue that we'd like to be able to attract the world's best science and be able to demonstrate that we are the place where the world's best scientists come to do the research. However, how do we provide an incentive, if we're free at the point of access, to those countries, to countries to actually pay and become members? What is the additional added value of being a member? And that's something, again, that we're in the process of exploring. Among the mechanisms, for example, the ways you can demonstrate an advantage of being a member is if you join the organization, you then become part of the decision-making process that shapes it and can adapt the organization better tailored to the research needs of those member countries. And one could also offer advantageous collaborations, joint positions, joint studentships, and development projects with specific countries. So if they become member, they engage in some closer way over and above just being countries that submit proposals to, in the user access program. There can be a means in which you can consolidate and provide a distinct advantage to that country if it invests in the facility to shape it better to those needs. So those are just a few thoughts about some of the challenges, and I'm sure more will come out in the discussion afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrew. We'll address some of these issues more deeply during the discussion. But so everyone till now has mentioned also the importance of training skilled personnel, and that is a very good cue for you, Julia. So please.
Thank you very much, Jana. Thank you very much, the organizers, for giving me the possibility to talk in name of the human resources, because I'm one of this staff that working in the research infrastructures. And I have heard about funding, about research infrastructures, about skills, about helping them, how we do that. And for do that, we actually need to know them. And you have to hear them. I see that you are writing chapters, you're writing, but I think you also have to hear them. Today, for example, we have a great example, actually, when we went to the observatory, and we have all these passionate people talking about constantly. They gave 10, 20 minutes, but they could talk 20 hours or 20 days constantly. Because it's not only the technical part that they know. That's actually important. That's why they are there. That's why they do the job. But as you see here in this, that's not words, sorry. Yeah. In this slide, I want to bring one person that work. It's taken from actually a website of the imaging scientists and working as an imaging scientist, working with a lot of microscopes all around. And as you see there, around this person and the microscope, I don't have only the technical parts. All the knowledge and science and applications, seeing what other people don't see. And this is very important. And this is very important in terms of the skills when we try to define career progressions and career path for these experts. This is taken as well from the framework of the competence, just to explain a little bit what is also behind this multidisciplinary people, because when you start to define the competency profile, you start to see that the list is getting longer and longer and longer. We're talking about tailoring career path, because we talk about global dimension, and I think we cannot forget that. I know that I am in an audience right now that actually understand that. I hope they understand that, the research, the sustainability of the research infrastructures in general is also depending on them. It's yes, we need funding, but if we lose them, it doesn't matter, we have the most expensive infrastructure, we will not be able to run that infrastructure. And I know that bad because I have more than 20 different microscopes, 10 people for all over the world dealing with this, and I have to deal with all of them at the same time during all this time. There are experts, as I say, yes, that's right, but there is more. There are facilitators. I love the word, when I started more than 20 years ago, it was not research infrastructures, it was core facilities. We were the core, and that's a start after the post-genomic era, when you need people that helping all to deal with all, and here is Nicholas, to deal with the bioinformatics and to deal with all this data we got, that we need the experts, and we have to forming, and we're forming bioinformaticians. It was completely new career, and they just started 25 years ago, something like that. Now, the problem is how you attract them and how you retain them. How you motivate them to be in a research infrastructure is they know that they will get more money in an industry. Why not stay? Why stay there? Well, many of them will stay because they're passionate. I'm passionate for my work. I have been working always in an institutional research infrastructure, in a facility inside a university, and we are really passionate. We really like what we're doing. We really like to facilitate other researchers. We are not the stars. The stars are the researchers, and you also have to have this kind of mindset where you deal with that. You are not a star any longer. You are actually helping others to become stars. For doing that, actually, we need help. We really need help, and here there is many people that probably, and I hope they understand, that we actually need that. And we actually need that the states, the governments, the institutions actually recognize the work that these people is doing every single day when they sitting at the telescope so high up, alone in the middle of the night, trying to see. I promise you, I'm working in a microscope. It's quite similar to, you are also in dark rooms, and when you get this result, that is the result, you really, with the researcher, you actually feel extremely rewarding. More rewarding than when I was at research and doing my own research and getting all these papers and publications. We need to nurturing the future. And when I say that, it's because we're talking about the research infrastructure, people that working there, the skilled people, the technicians, the scientists, the administrators, we need them as well. We always think about those guys there that we need to help them. We need to help them to training them to get more knowledge in what they're doing. But why not to start before that? Why not to create experts in research infrastructures? People that actually started when they were bachelors And they start actually studying, and there is something more than just, okay, I'm the biology, this is my background, I do a PhD, I do a postdoc, I become an associate professor, hopefully a professor, and I get a lot of students working with me. But actually, there is other possibilities. This is just some of the training and the importance that we have for the long-term sustainability, because many of us, we are in short-term contracts. We have a problem with the people that is in the short term. If you have the best person, and in the short term, we will lose them. We really need to create a long-term sustainability for this staff. And as I say, why not to start early? Not just when the person is forming, but actually start in some way to promote that there's other way than the academic pathway, and that is as rewarding as the academic pathway. Probably some of you know, this is a project, an European project that called the Retrain Plus, Research Infrastructure Training Plus. And our idea in that project is actually to start as early as possible to make the potential prospects, operators for research infrastructures, or maybe managers, or heads, or even more than that, that actually understand from the very beginning what they have. Is actually start to create a career path. I have heard many times career path, but what that means really, career path. You also have the career progression. How do you progress in the core facilities or in the research infrastructures? I know that this case for the centralized facilities, this have been a bit easier. Is one facility, but for the distributed facilities that we are distributed, allow different universities, and we all know how universities are sometimes very conservative actually in changing the human resources and the changes and creating new positions. We actually need to work on that. And for doing that, we need top-down help. We cannot do it for bottom-up. We try to explain every single day where we do, and that we need to have a clear career path with career progression, with clear job descriptions. There is not everything negative, everything is positive, but we are here, and you are here, and I know that I am with an audience that actually understand that. And in this project, actually, we want to start, as I say, very early on that. I'm actually very happy to see that I have students that I just teach a couple of weeks ago with one of the first pilot projects we have for courses that we want to do for advanced experts or professionals. But we are going to go to the bachelor's and to the master's and to the PhD students, actually as well, to explain them what a research infrastructure is. Because I know that in this audience, I don't need to explain, but definitely the students doesn't know. Many of them doesn't know. But today I was so happy to hear from my colleagues that were with the telescope that when they started, there was less than 50 people that did astrophysics in Spain. In Spain, not in Canarias, in Spain. Right now, they have more than 1,000. And that is thanks to the telescopes, to a research infrastructure that is close to the students, and they bring master students to actually see what you can do in a research infrastructure. Because if you don't bring masters or bachelors, we will still, of course, I know what I'm doing, I can get a training, and I can get much better, and definitely we need to do that. But you need to create some motivation in the early generations to actually motivate them to stay in the research infrastructures. If you don't start early on that, it will be very difficult to keep and to motivate. And of course, we need a proper career progression and job description. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Julia. The last one of the panelists is Niklas Blumberg, Executive Director from Elixir, a data infrastructure.
Thank you very much. And can you hear me? Yes. And thank you very much for the invitation. So I want to talk a little bit more about distributed research infrastructures to give the perspective. I run Elixir. We are possibly an extremely distributed infrastructure. It's 22 countries. Most of our national nodes is not a single big facility. They are consortia that involves if not also most of the big research centers or laboratories in each country. And so in total, we are perhaps 240 institutes within the infrastructure. So that's quite a lot. And so in this short intervention, I'd like to leave you with a couple of messages and impressions. And I think the impression here from the first one is really of that, the strength of that distribution and how we actually can use that to drive research excellence. But we also, for the distributed infrastructures, I think need to approach that a little bit and the value a little bit differently than we do for the single site instruments. And if we look in the case of Elixir, I think is a good example. We are supporting the whole of life sciences, so all the way from, say, biodiversity up to human genomics, translational research, with biological data interventions. And we do that with institutes across Europe. Now, if you think of one of our member states, Norway, they will do a lot of marine research. That's a strength of Norway. It's a prioritized research area. That's something they will invest in. And so the national facilities will also benefit from having, say, some of the world's leading experts on fish genomics within those national facilities. If we go to another country in Elixir, say the Czech Republic, I see John here in front of me, they obviously don't do a lot of marine research. They will have the strength in other areas. In the case of Czech Republic, it's a lot of drug discovery and so on. And so I think one of the benefits of the distributed infrastructures is really this ability to harvest expertise from a lot of different sort of centers across Europe and bring that together. And I think if we then look at the value, it's not only, even though that's important, the delivery to the scientists of excellent scientific support, but it's also to create those networks of exchange within these sub-disciplines. How do we get the data experts within, say, plant biology to work together and set the standards in that field? I think another important benefit of that distribution-ness, if we want, is actually the industry interactions. And so we have in Elixir, and I think this is true for many of the distributed infrastructures, you can work with the national or even regional sort of innovation hubs or bioregions or whatever they are called, but you can actually try to bring experts in given fields, depending on smart specialization strategies or similar things, into those bioregions. And so if we heard topics coming up from the Belgian presidency earlier today, and I think of that value creation, how do we get the distributed research infrastructures to really create synergies with the local industry environment across Europe is actually really quite important. But coming back to the theme, the sustainability of research infrastructures then also depends on all of these centers working, if not in lockstep, so at least in some reasonable synchronization. And so how do we get national roadmaps over 20 countries to be reasonably well aligned? Because if you're trying to build federated data systems, if a few countries disappear, well, then that affects all the other partners within the infrastructure. And it's that sort of joint planning, I think, which is really important. I think that's one of the aspects where the European Commission can really help also the member states. And I was glad to hear the comments from Elena, really help the member states to put robust roadmaps in place. So the other, and I wanted to pick the example, Elixir, we're involved in human genomics. This is an example from the European genomic data structure that we coordinate. And so essentially what we're trying to do is to build capability in each of the national or the regional research centers to participate in the federated data sharing. And so there are two things I wanted to pick up and leave you with from this slide. And so one is the ability of harvest then, as I said, the knowledge from that whole community when we start to put in place standards or procedures. It's not only from one country, but it's an opportunity to pick up the needs and the requirements from a lot of different institutes across Europe. But the other thing is that in actually for this to happen and be effective, an important role for the research infrastructure is to help to build the capacity. Once you have described those requirements, and we tend to do that in some form of maturation model, but once you have described those requirements, you also then need to put in place some sort of capacity building program to help all the participants in this distributed infrastructure to reach the required level. So the distributed research infrastructures, I think, can be very powerful mechanisms in Europe for building capacity and spreading excellence, not only in the big research centers, but really democratize that across the whole of Europe. And that aspect, I think, is also an important part of the national road mapping. It's a way of building the national capacity. So the final slide I wanted to show, we talked about impact evaluation. This is, again, an example from my own research infrastructure. But the message here is that actually it's not enough to look then at the center, the organizing, the hub, but actually for a distributed infrastructure to be sustainable, you need also to help all the national nodes to be able to have those conversations in a meaningful way with the national funders. Because most of the funding in a distributed infrastructure, of course, comes from the member states, and it's funded in the country, by the country, often for the country. Most of the users are national. And so one of the things that we've done is to try to build up a common sort of knowledge base and experience across all our member states for how you do impact evaluation. And we've done that over a number of years through a number of projects. Actually, Anna, where are you? Anna Portugal, over there. Anna is now the Director General of MIRI, but she's been one of the drivers for this in Elixir. So if you're curious, then talk to Anna Portugal MIRI from MIRI later on. And so, but the key message I wanted to leave you with is really that it's not enough to look at the center. You also need to both to build the capacity and build the evaluation capacity across the whole of the infrastructure. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Niklas, a follow-up question. Just if you are to select just a few topics, what are the main challenges but also opportunities that are key for the success, long-term success of distributed research infrastructures?
So I kept to time, is that why I get a follow-up question? So I'd like to come back to Julia's point. I think the message I hear most frequently from all of our national nodes is the difficulty of recruiting skilled people. And I hear that much more often than I hear lack of money. I think every scientist will always, but that is often, as Carlo pointed out earlier, we can often overcome that. But what I hear almost every week is from our nodes is the difficulty of finding skilled personnel. And it's not only the technical people, it's also, if we go back to our genomics infrastructure, if you're trying to deal with sensitive data at the European scale, you also need good administrative, operational, managerial individuals within the infrastructure, and you need to invest and train those. But that's the number one thing I hear.
Thank you. We'll address this topic a bit later, but first of all, Elena, I'm dying to ask you, so the new following your presentation, the new roadmaps due in at the end of 25, so in 2 years. What can be done now that you started this work? By then, when we will add new research infrastructure, which of course also contributes to the stress sustainability of the existing ones?
I think that you understood that it's something which is extremely ambitious, what we are doing now, and we have just started. So we see only the upper part of the iceberg. I hope that in 2 years we will be able maybe to clarify the system, maybe to help the governments, but also the research infrastructures to see the whole picture and to be able to make projections, because also what we would like to give some recommendations on the funding models, but we also would like to give some recommendations about future funding models, future instruments which should be used maybe at the national levels, but also probably at the European level. So hopefully our report would bring this question to the European level. We would take it seriously, and we would see how we can look into the future, maybe with some reinforced European instruments, but also a better ordered national instruments. So I would not say more at the moment. Let's see how we will manage it.
Thank you. So no instant solutions, but there is an ambition to have more clarity in 2 years' time.
We have this ambition, yes, exactly. We need it, absolutely need it, if you want to progress altogether and to face the challenges which are appearing every day, something new. You see, we couldn't predict the things. So we need the whole funding system be resilient and strong.
Thank you very much. So the next question to the two managers of research infrastructures, Andrew and Nicholas. Julia was presenting the issues regarding the need for trained personnel, but also to retain personnel. As managers of research infrastructures, what can you do? What do you think is a priority to keep to attract the highly skilled personnel and keep them? Andrew.
Yeah, so I think a key thing that motivates the scientists, I mean, Nicholas, you touched on the need for a wider range of people. I'll touch on the scientists. I think the key thing that research infrastructures can do to scientists is actually offer them the opportunity to have their own access, some of their own science program as well, to using the infrastructure to do the very best science. So the scientists that we employ, yes, they're there to develop the instruments to support the users in their science, but they're also there as scientists in their own right. And I think the value of giving them a marginal amount of time to develop their own science is a key way to keep them. You generally don't keep them through salaries. You keep them because they want to deliver science. And if your infrastructure is at the cutting edge in your domain, that's a really strong reason to keep them.
Thank you. Nicholas, any recipe for success?
I don't know that, but I'll build on and complement Andrew's view. I think another thing is we don't look at the scientists, but we look both at managerial and the operators. I think one of the things that we can offer in the research infrastructures, especially the distributed one, is not a career progression pathway, but it's a development pathway. You get to be part of European level working groups. You can lead a work package in a European project. You get to work with a peer group of colleagues in other countries who are as deeply embedded in the technical specialism as you are. And so that's, I think, I see that in Elixir as a lot of people are deeply motivated by that. It's fun, it adds value to their work. But if I may, one thing, I don't think we shouldn't be afraid to lose people. But let's rephrase that. I think it's important to think about research infrastructure as a source of really highly skilled technical and scientific personnel for the European industry. And so we shouldn't lose sight of that. And if I look at some of the Elixir alumni, I mean, a lot of them have gone to industry and run things like their AI units or become the CTO of other organizations. And that's really important. That's part of the job. And I think we should just accept that and then put that planning into our long-term funding cycles so we actually deal with the staff turnover in a positive way. Yeah.
Thank you. Julia, what are the key challenges in attracting and retaining personnel?
Well, I think I put some of them already there in terms of career progression and career path. I can be agreed with Nicholas. If I was not the manager of the facility and I need to hire people and keep the people, and after 2-3 years where they are productive, they disappear. And they disappear not because they don't like to work there. That's the problem. The real problem is that it's not that they don't like, but there is a fear competition for them. And if our institution means my university or my facility or the research infrastructures behind us, is not really motivate them, giving them a proper job description and career path. And agree with you, I think it's very important for the scientific ones that they need to have other motivation, not only the service side, meaning that they can develop, and this is where we saw this morning as well, with our colleagues in the telescopes, they actually develop the cameras and some of the mirrors they have there. That means you give them this part of 20% or whatever percentage you allow them. This is what I do in my facility, and that's how we do development, and that's how we do innovation. If we want to be half of innovation, we have to do that. Work-life balance. We sometimes ask too much for the operators and the managers. They need to as well go home and have a life, and sometimes they have very problems to do because the locations of some of the research infrastructures geographically are not easily as well. And they can get more money in other company where get closer and they get a job. I mean, I can see, for example, for people working with me and go to AstraZeneca, that is just, I'm working in Gothenburg in Sweden. They go to AstraZeneca and they tell me, because I have a proper job description and career progression, I will go from here to here to here. If I do well, if I don't want to, I want to stop here, I can stop. Then yes, and I agree with you that and many of the people have worked with me right now that they are in very nice positions outside, but they have been a nightmare for me, a headache, to try to find another one, because they are really specialized, they are unique. And in some of these specialized and unique, you don't have hundreds of them. You don't have tenths of them. You can sometimes count with hands the amount of people that are able to deliver that. And then I think definitely we have to recognize then for the impact that they produce in what we call excellent science. And I can continue with my list, but it could be too long that I think I have to give time to my colleagues to talk.
Thank you. To Carlo, the last one on this topic. So European Commission has recently published draft Council recommendation on research careers, which is now taken forward by the, will be taken forward by the Council. How does this reflect on the community of research infrastructures? What are the opportunities here?
Well, we were speaking before with Anna that it is much too easy to criticize the Commission. The point is that these are documents that give clearly what is the problem. So the problem is clear. They try to give to prepare a directive, something that maybe the states can adapt case by case. And this does not work. I think that what must be done at this point is really to start, if you want, standardizing the descriptions of the careers, because they change from country to country. I mean, it's almost impossible to describe to a technician what will be the career in another research infrastructure. And I always start with the technician because it can be more critical than the researcher. The researcher knows how to move. For a technician, it's very difficult to move. For an administrator, it's even more difficult because they are embedded in a legal system, which is typically a national legal system. So they are not capable to think about moving, except very few and very rare. So I think that one thing that we have really to start addressing is how there can be a European standard in which the people that are working in research feel European citizens. Because there are many ways in which you don't feel European citizen. So, for example, the European Research Area has not yet introduced the European researcher that lives in the European Research Area, or the staff working in research which is a citizen of the European Research Area, which has a number of elements which help to identify each other as being a citizen of this area. So I think that we have really to start thinking, what are these problems that impede a mobility of all the stuff that is needed in research? in particular, if we go to research infrastructures and the ones which are set up institutionally by the European Union, the ERICs in particular, is very strange that for the ERICs there is not a European career within a remit of a European institution, while there is in the European Commission or in the joint undertakings. So this is there is even the problem of discrimination of the people that are within European-wide distributed infrastructures, not only the ERICs, but all the research infrastructures.
But,
so here we have a very deep problem.
Yeah, and ERIC regulation in this case, because there is a regulation that can be applied across countries, then offers an opportunity. But let me go to another topic now. Andrew, Carla, thank you. Because we have audience here, and we would like to hear questions from you. We don't have much time left. So could we have a slide with the code, QR code that the audience can scan and then enter the questions for the panelists? Thank you very much. So please scan the code, and that will enable you to add the questions. Then please, if you see the questions that you like them, they will move to the top, and they will more readily be picked up. But while you are occupied with this, I will continue with the questions with a new topic now, and that relates to the new challenges, expectations that are posed on research infrastructures. Not just the data that I mentioned earlier, also increasing use of artificial intelligence with the opportunities that it brings, the need for the digital evolution, green transition, which is imminent. So how best to address these topics? Elena, briefly.
Yes, okay. We started already in S3 this work, addressing the energy and supply challenges. So we have some recommendations which are published in the report, because we say that these challenges, they are not individual challenges of every country or of one single research infrastructure. These are European challenges. We need to find some European solutions for them. So for energy and supply questions, so we have this report where we give some recommendations and so on. I think that actually this digital and environmental transition is also something which we should take seriously at the European level. It is a European priority. So we have some funding possibilities at the European level. We have also some funding possibilities at national levels when we speak about the, for example, resilience funds. We know that in many countries there is a requirement to benefit from these funds if we apply the regulations of digital and environmental transition. So the practices exist, but again, they are more or less individual. We need to find some European solutions, some common solutions to move forward together.
Thank you, Elena. Andrew?
Yeah, I think something we feel very keenly in the large-scale infrastructures is the impact of energy costs. I mean, a large, significant proportion of our budget, and I said our budgets are, the operational side of it is marginal, are very sensitive to energy costs when we're trying to drive machines which are very energy demanding. And I think there are two things that we could think about doing here. One is an evolutionary aspect. A lot of us share very common technology in accelerators, and there are developments that could be coordinated collectively in terms of better magnets, better currently based accelerator science, which also incidentally touched on European sovereignty in rare materials as well. So, our dependence on rare earths, for example, most of them get their names from Scandinavian locations, but are now largely supplied from China. And we are very dependent on importing some of these very rare materials. So developing technology that is through an evolutionary means that is less energy demanding. I would also say being quite radical in our rethink of some of these technologies. I would say this, but one of the things Eli does, but it's also done in DAISY in Hamburg, and it's done in HZDR in Dresden, is to look at wholly new technologies to replace some of the very energy-dependent technology we use to drive these big machines. So next-generation accelerator science, for example, in the longer term, could really help us wean us off our heavy dependence on energy.
Thank you, Nicholas.
So I agree, but I think that there is, on greening, there is another interesting aspect, and that's actually software. And so we know from the life sciences that the way people developed algorithm, you can cut energy consumption with up to 80%. And so a lot of that, I think, is capacity building, really making sure that the scientists get trained in good software development practice to take down the energy cost of computation. But I'd like to come back to, so one of the starting point was actually what can be done to foster these topics. And one of the projects I've led that's coming to an end now is one of the cluster projects in EOSC called EOSC Life. But what we did there was actually, and so these bring together all the infrastructures within the domain, in this case life sciences. But one of the things that we did and we set out early to do is actually to fund what we called a data expert, in at least make sure that every research infrastructure at the start had funding set aside for putting a data expert at the head office. And I think if we look over the 4.5 years that the project has run, that has been largely successful. These people are now in place. And actually, last week there was the EOSC Symposium. If you went to the EOSC Symposium, then it was these individuals who represented the RIs in EOSC, and they are driving the fair practices. So I think actually there are instruments that can be used very successfully to build this expertise in the research infrastructures.
Thank you very much. So we have a bit of a problem. So we'll just have a question, time for one question, unfortunately, because our time's running out. If you think that there's a monitor up here, it doesn't work. So we need to turn back to you to read this. So to the panelists, different funding streams are very difficult to combine. Do you have concrete examples of success stories and how they managed? Would someone like to address this one?
I don't know if I'm supposed to address this question. We have success stories for sure. I cannot just tell you that, for example, in France, we manage more or less successfully these things. And probably we will need to share the experiences of different countries in our report. That's why I said I gave you just the first insights into the conclusions, because there are really issues in these items. But then the good practices exist, certainly. We will share them, we will learn from them, and this will be the idea. For example, in France, we have the National Roadmap on Research Infrastructures, which is a strategic document. We don't forget about national priorities somehow. Still, we are doing our we are taking our national strategic decisions in accordance with national priorities, but also in accordance with European priorities. So we try to do it in parallel. We'll try to do it in accordance with these orientations. We have basic funding. We have also projects funding. We have also strategic funding, like resilience funding. And these things are not dedicated directly to research infrastructures, but what we say in the course, for example, is that all this funding, when we speak about research infrastructures, should be linked to the list of research infrastructures. So it means that we have maybe some national priorities which focus on some particular things, but we have link with the strategic developments at the European level as well. So we are trying to combine it somehow.
So there's, as Elena also said, thank you. As Elena mentioned, that the report that is the financing topic will continue within ESRI, and will collect also good practices which could inspire then the research infrastructures which need to combine the funds. So very briefly, Julia, Andrew, and also Niklas would like to add.
Yeah, I want to add regarding this, the different streams on the, in the distributed facilities, institutional facility as mine, this is the way we work. We have budgets that come in from different sources. And we have, the headache is for me when I have to report every year to the different agencies where we get the money. But this is a common way. It will be impossible for an institutional research infrastructure core facility to only get money locally or regional. You need to get money national and international. That means this is actually the way we have to do on the distributed institutional research infrastructures.
Thank you. Andrew?
So an example of the type of infrastructure that also operates like this are some of the multinationally funded ones. So my personal experience at ILL is dealing with 14 different ministries and ensuring that every 3 or 4 years they signed up, in addition to the so-called associates, to an agreement to continue the fund. So you had to be constantly aware of the funding priorities of each country, juggling everything, but somehow keep the boat floating by ensuring that all 14, you address the needs of all 14 at once on a regular basis. Final thing I would say ELI, it's early days yet, but there's been a bold move for the first time to put really significant structural funds into building research infrastructures. And the next phase of persuading member states to get on board is starting to look promising. So I would say that in 5 years' time, I'd like to say ELI is a great example of combining structural funds with national funds in a coordinated way to achieve sustainability.
Two examples I think are really interesting. So one is the federated EGA, which underpins the genomic data infrastructure. When we set that up, it was set up as a joint venture between EBI in the UK and CRG in Barcelona. And that joint leadership allowed the Barcelona team to go to the La Caixa Foundation and get quite a large sort of co-funding from a private endowment. I don't think that would ever have happened if you hadn't set it up distributed with joint leadership in multiple locations. So I think that's one really good example. Another interesting example, I think, is the European PubMed Central, which runs a lot of the preprints and also collect preprints from a lot of funders. That could be very complicated to work as the source for 26 different funders with different grants. But actually what the Wellcome Trust does is that it sets up a collaboration with the other 25 funders, and they jointly issue one 5-year program grant. And so the overhead of running that joint funding is actually quite manageable, both for the funders and for the resource itself. So I think those are really interesting examples to look at.
Thank you, and I hope we'll collect them at the level of S3 so that also everyone could learn from this. With this, we are coming to a close of this session, 5 minutes late. I would like to thank very much the panelists. So let me just conclude by saying that Europe is a home of a well-developed system of research infrastructures. And this is also due to the fact that 21 years ago, member states and European Commission started cooperating. And this is quite a unique cooperation, so well working, particularly in the field of research infrastructures, which is unique in European research area so far. Now, as research infrastructures grow in number, also in complexity, as they need to meet the increasing challenges, be it societal challenges, energy challenges, and similar. And they're more and more globally interconnected. The sustainability challenges intensify. So hopefully the panelists have been able to provide some of the inspiration for the future. And I would like to thank very much the audience and the panelists for their contributions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for such an interesting talk. I think it was like a great example of what the actual union in the union can do, and it gives a little bit of hope for our situation. Also, I wanted to thank everyone who sent a question. I know there's been quite a few. There was not enough time for all of them. Sorry about that. We are about to come to an end, but first of all, I mean, before we finish, we have the pleasure to hold the ERIC ceremony. And today, the Aerosol, Clouds, and Trace Gases Research Infrastructure Activities will be awarded with the ERIC plate. For this, we have with us Ana Arana from the European Commission and Mrs. Antje Kepler, Chair of the ERIC Forum. Please welcome Ana Arana.
So I'm very pleased to welcome you all to this ERIC ceremony. So today we are celebrating a very important achievement, the establishment of the ACTRIS ERIC as an European Research Infrastructure Consortium. So for us in the Commission, ACTRIS ERIC is a fantastic example of continuous and long-term integration and opening up. From early 2000, with several networks, firstly coordinating, then integrating progressively while opening and developing access to their facilities, their online services, and the interoperability. So the solid maturation and continuous EU support has been very successful, as evidenced by the strong support to this new distributed research infrastructure, with already 17 countries as members and observers. So the ACTRIS ERIC strongly contributes to the new European research area objectives and to the Green Deal. It coordinates activities for documenting concentrations, understanding processes, and quantifying impacts on short-lived atmospheric constituents on the Earth's climate, air quality, human health, and ecosystems. It's remarkable that ACTRIS can have strong and diverse impact for the society, for example, with short-term hazardous weather and health warnings. At the same time, it also supports long-term evaluation of climate change. So with 26 ERICs, as I said before, set up since 2011 and several in preparation, ERIC has become an instrument of choice for a large part of common European research infrastructure initiatives, notably for those prioritized in the S3 roadmap. So in this August, we adopted in the Commission the third report on the implementation of the ERIC regulation, I also mentioned this before, which identified strengths and challenges. So ERIC instrument is helping structure and integrate research activities and resources within the European research area. Nevertheless, as for many pan-European research infrastructures, the financial and operational sustainability of the ERIC remains a challenge, as many speakers have mentioned. The report recommends that further effort is needed to strengthen the access programs of the ERICs and the availability of the services. The development of new European research area policy agenda, supported by the work of S3 and the involvement of all stakeholders, can provide an effective framework to discuss the way forward. The further development of the ERIC system should help link in more extensively the broader research infrastructure network and the new era to better respond to EU priorities and global challenges. So I am confident that ACTRIS will play a key role in this ecosystem. I expect that ACTRIS as an ERIC now will be stronger to provide excellent science, including the science-based information necessary to face grand societal challenges, such as climate change and human health. So we will be having the giving of the ERIC plate afterwards, but let me already wish great success to the newly established ACTRIS ERIC.
Hello, everyone. Also on behalf of ERIC Forum, it's really a pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you. So ERIC Forum started as a bottom-up initiative by a handful of ERICs that were present in 2017. And I don't know how many of you remember the location of that event. That took place at the other end of Europe, up there in the north in Finland, in Helsinki, in a prison. Do you remember, those of you who were there? I thought this was really cool. Now, a couple of years later, we are here at the other end, opposite of Europe. 25 ERICs right now in the ERIC Forum, and it has been growing into a very fruitful, integrated ecosystem. We are working together daily across the ERICs, interdisciplinary, and I think this is also underpinned and echoed by the European Commission by funding the ERIC Forum project 2.0 that we just launched about 10 days ago, and we also have the coordinator here with us today. In ERIC Forum, we have two missions. One is more looking internally, where we are working together for exchange of experience, supporting each other, the younger ERICs, to get up to speed based on the experiences that we have made in the first and second generation. But then also, we are looking outwards. We are the one voice to speak with the stakeholders in Europe, and I think by now you can safely say that we are being recognized and visible as a very reliable partner in the European research area. But most of the time, we are talking about our problems, our challenges when it comes to implementation and operation. And I would really like to have a break here today. It's not only good, but it's even healthy. And I was looking the whole day at the title, Global Dimension. The rest was being covered by the panelists. And 3 weeks ago, we had Australian infrastructures over in Prato in Italy, and we were discussing how to collaborate. And the echo was the most of the time, you Europeans, why do you complain? You have paradise. You have those European research infrastructures in place. The same was true about 2 months ago when I was visiting a scientific imaging infrastructure conference in the US. They were really looking at me with awe when I described what we have, what we can provide as open access. They didn't believe me. They approached me after the presentation and said, can you describe this again? And telling each other, guys, we have to do something. The Europeans are so far ahead. So maybe this is the message we should have in mind when celebrating this event tonight. And I would like to welcome Actris ERIC as the 26th member to the ERIC Forum family.
Thank you. So please welcome, give a resounding applause to Aja Jurola, who will receive the plate from Mrs. Anna Arana and Aja Kipper. She's the actress representative. Where is she? Oh, there it is.
Yes. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to stand here and receive the plate. In Finland we say that hyvää kannattaa odottaa. So it's worth waiting for good things to happen. And this is one of those days. And that we are standing here and Actris is established as a legal entity, as an ERIC, it really goes down to three very important things that have led us here. So the first thing is that you might know that Actris is a large distributed research infrastructure. We have more than 140 research performing organizations participating in the activities. And one of the keys to the success of Actris ERIC is the committed scientific community, large scientific community who really saw the need for establishing a research infrastructure on atmospheric sciences. So we have hundreds, almost 1,000 researchers and technicians, scientists contributing to the development and establishment of the research infrastructure. Then second important key for the establishment and the success of the ERIC is the commitment from the countries. So as was said earlier, we have already now 17 countries as members and observers, and the commitment from the representatives from the countries has been really solid and continuous from the early on. So this has been really important to be able to proceed in the process of the establishment and implementing ACTRIS as a research infrastructure in Europe. And then the third thing is, of course, that we are grateful for the support from the European Commission in the design, preparatory phase and implementation phase, and really for also for the ESFRI for guiding us to build a research infrastructure which will be sustainable and impactful in the European landscape of research infrastructures. So thank you all for this opportunity and all the support. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much. I think we've come to an end. Well, thank you. If you want to just join me and say goodbye to everyone, we'll do it together. Thank you. I think we've come to an end of a very intense and good first day. For me as a civilian, it's been very interesting. There's a lot of words that I can actually grab, but there's one, and Julia is going to allow me to grab it because it's facilitation, facilitating. I think that's it really resounds on my head from what we've heard today. I mean, facilitating research, facilitating investigation, I think is probably one of the most important things to assure a future for everyone. Anyway, I just wanted to remind you that there is a social dinner today. You will have a bus that's waiting for you outside. It'll bring you to the hotel, and then at 7:30 p.m., there's a meeting point in Plaza de Europa. That's 7:30 p.m., and the bus will bring you to the social dinner at the Hotel Grand Mercy in Santa Cruz de Tenerife. So enjoy the dinner, try to rest. We'll see you back here tomorrow with more and interesting talks. Bye.